Hey everyone. So I got a ton of questions in the last video that I made, and instead of doing a Drysuit comparison between the two brands behind me, I thought it might be better if I talked about the ownership of a Drysuit and even purchasing your first one to give you some of my perspective and my points of view. So we're going to talk about the background as far as what diving I do, and I'm also going to go over some of the options that you can get in a Drysuit, and we'll talk about fit, durability and aftercare, and as well as one of the most important things is warranty and issues and repairs. So my background in diving and then specifically using a Drysuit started about 2014. I primarily am a cave diver. I took my first cave diving class in, I think, 2015 or 16, and since then I've been mostly cave diving. So from that perspective, almost all of the features that I chose are more for that aspect, including durability and things like that. So keep that in mind when you're listening to this video, watching this video, that my perspective is from a cave diving point of view and not necessarily an open water diving and not necessarily a recreational diving standpoint. So where to begin? So maybe you've never owned a Drysuit before, maybe you're either a brand new scuba diver or you've been diving in a wetsuit for a number of years and you're tired of being cold, and now you say, I would really like to have a Drysuit. Drysuits are arguably the most expensive purchase that you'll make. It's also one of the most customizable purchases that you will make. So to that, it's very important that you take your time and you choose the Drysuit that works best for you. I very, very much recommend working with a shop or professional that dives in a Drysuit often. And this is important because you're going to get their expertise when they're fitting you for a Drysuit. So there's two options that you can do. You can buy a brand new Drysuit that's stock sizes, then you can try them on, and if it fits you, great. Or you can buy a brand new Drysuit and get it made to measure, made to fit you. If you do get a made to measure, you definitely want to get with a shop or somebody that knows how to measure properly. Both of these suits behind me, they have experts out there that you can do that. If you're confident you can measure yourself, but I highly recommend going to a shop that knows how to measure. This is very important. The other option is you can get a used suit. There are some pitfalls with doing this. You may run into that scenario where you're buying someone else's problems. If that's all you can afford, that's totally fine. I have plenty of friends that dive, use Drysuits that they've purchased secondhand, and they've worked for years fine. It's probably better to talk to somebody who really knows what they're looking for in a used Drysuit. Almost always you're going to have to replace the neck and wrist seals and maybe even the zipper. So these can be very expensive repairs right out the gate. So in some cases it's better and cheaper to buy a new Drysuit that's of higher quality than to go off and buy a used one on, say, eBay that you don't know that fits, and you're probably going to have to replace a bunch of stuff. So be really careful if you do that. I do recommend getting one that fits you, measured by someone, and purchasing it new. I think you're going to save yourself a lot of problems. But like I said, if you can't, totally get it. And there's plenty of people out there that have bought a used Drysuit. Probably most importantly though is go try it on. Don't just buy it on eBay. So let's talk options. All right. So there's a ton of stuff out there on the market, and generally for me, what I'm looking for is a suit called tri-laminate. And this is a thin material that's waterproof, but it's a laminated material. And what you'll also see out in the market is a crushed neoprene. I know DUI makes one. There's some that are bilaminate, I think. So obviously there's less thickness to the material. What you're going to look for is you're going to want to look for an outer layer that's more durable and then a waterproof inner layer. And often a third layer that protects the inside of the dry suit from like your undergarments and zippers and things like that. So personally, my preference is a tri-laminate suit. Both of these behind me are tri-laminate, and that's the way I would go. But again, your preference. So speaking of options, there's a ton of stuff that you can get. So I'm going to start with the DUI and talk about the features that I got and then what's available. So let's start with the neck seal. This is I believe this is latex. Yeah, it's not silicone. So you can get a couple different options here. You can get silicone, which is supposed to be more comfortable, or you can get latex. Personally, I prefer the latex. It's more durable, and you can see when it starts to degrade. The latex starts to get cracks in it, and it's not going to have a catastrophic failure unless you don't pay attention to your dry suit. So I got the latex seals all around in this, and there's another option you can get with making the neck seal interchangeable or easily to replace. It's a ring that goes around, and it's I think it's like almost like a zipper system or a Ziploc system, like the old Ziploc bags. I guess they still make those. And you can replace the neck seal in the field. I personally don't feel that this is warranted. I think that's just a point of failure, and if you inspect your dry suit seals enough and take care of them, that you'll be able to tell if the seal is going bad. So personally, I don't recommend it, but again, the time that maybe that would make the most sense is if you're in an expedition and there's no way that you can get your dry suit in for repair. To replace the neck and wrist seals on any of the suits that I have, it's well, except for the Santi actually, which I'll talk about. You have to unglue, or you have to remove them and re-glue a new seal on. So this is a labor-intensive process. Slightly different on this Santi E-Lite Plus is this has a feature like a ring system. They think they call it a ring system, that you can remove the wrist seals. I would say wrist seals tend to get probably the most abuse. So you may be replacing these. But again, I use the latex, and these are the heavy-duty latex seals. The disadvantage is that they're less comfortable than the silicone. The advantage is they're far more durable. So I tend to like these, and just about everybody I know uses these as well. So just something to keep in mind for you. I have replaced wrist and neck seals probably 3 or 4 times. So once I see them start to go bad, I just take it to the shop and do it. Next, let's talk about the zipper. On the DUI here, again, this is the DUI FLX Extreme, and I got the metal zip on this suit. On all the Santi suits that I've owned, I've had the plastic zip, and I've not had any real issues with them. They have failed though. I have generally gotten about 200 dives out of a zip, and the last plastic zip that failed, I actually ripped teeth out trying to unzip it. I think the teeth just get weak, and it's about $300 to replace the zipper, so just keep that in mind. Supposedly, the metal zippers are more durable, though I think they do require a bit more maintenance. You have to keep them lubricated more, and take a toothbrush to them after the dive and make sure that there's no debris or sand or crap in them, and they should last for a while. So on the Santi E-Lite here, I got what's known as the tie zip, and it's plastic. These work fine. I've never had any real leaks, major leaks I should say. I've had pinhole leaks and things like that, but I think it's just wear and tear on the suit. It takes, they do take some abuse, but eventually you're gonna get leaks. And again, it doesn't really matter which zipper you go with from a cost of repair standpoint. They're both gonna be about $300 to replace, and your suit's gonna be in the shop for a couple weeks, so it's pretty intensive. Some of the other options that you can choose are the type of dump valve that you would get. I prefer these. They're a high profile apex valve. The reason I like them is because they're very easy to grab. You can find them quickly and you can manipulate them. Sometimes if you're on a dive and you forget, maybe as you've descended, you've closed your valve, and when you get to the bottom, you need to release some of the gas, and it's just quick and easy to reach over and grab the valve. Personally, I've never used the low profile, so I can't speak to which is better, but this is my preference. I've done that on all the suits. The next option that you can get is a different inflator, and again, I've chosen to do the apex on both the Santi and the DUI. What you're gonna find is actually I picked a lot of the elements that I like, and they're the same in both suits. So the main differences between these is the manufacturer and the cut, but there are some subtle things that as far as some of the choices that you have when you're building the suit that I think are pretty important. When you purchase a Drysuit, I think one of the often not highlighted features that is very important actually is a suspender system inside. The fabric of a Drysuit is pretty heavy, and when you're putting it on or you're walking around the dive site, you don't often want to get all the way in your Drysuit to gear up. So maybe you'll put the bottom half on and you'll leave the top half off. Having a pair of suspenders is really, really nice, and I think that some manufacturers don't put them in the suit. My personal preference is get the suspenders if it's an option. But there is a difference between the Santi and the DUI, the way they have them. I believe the old DUI suspenders were thinner. These are comparable to the Santi suspenders that I have, and I think that these are pretty quality, so this might be a new thing. I've seen some of the older ones that they looked like they weren't as durable, so watch out for that. But you definitely want to have a pair of suspenders, and that'll help keep the Drysuit in place as you're gearing up, or you're at the dive site doing your thing, or if you're on a boat, you probably don't want to be in your suit as you're motoring out to the site. So those are nice features. Again, I have them in both. One of the difference between the Santi and the DUI is, for example, the DUI, the suspenders are attached directly to the inside of the suit, and here in the Santi, the E-Lite, there is a internal pocket, storage pocket, that the suspenders are attached to. So that's kind of a nice feature if you're looking for a way to put your truck keys or something inside your suit to keep it from getting lost. So talking about more options, some Drysuit manufacturers will give you the option to place the dump valve just about anywhere you want it, right? Most of the cave divers that I know, they have the dump valve on their left shoulder. There are options that I've seen on websites for other manufacturers. I think maybe even DUI does it, but you can get them down on your wrist. You can get them even on your heel or on your leg. I always go with dump valve on my right shoulder, and this is a strategic thing. When you start dealing with a lot of gear and you're scootering and you have a lot of things to manage, oftentimes this hand is the free hand that's being able to do things. There are some people that put it on their right. There might be some advantages in certain cases to doing that, but for the most part, I 100% recommend putting the dump valve up on your shoulder, just in the normal place that DUI and Santi does it. So as I said, I'm not a cold water diver. I don't normally do open water. I'm a cave diver, so I can't speak too much for dry glove options. I have used dry gloves in the past just a little bit. I used a ring system from SI Tech. I think that's how you say it. The Santi has a ring system built into the suit on these new suits that you can add dry gloves I don't use them, so I guess maybe talk to someone that does and see what their recommendation is. Yeah, so I think unfortunately I can't help you there, but at least for me, maybe the ring system is an advantage because you can quickly change these out. I know that DUI has a zip seal option. As you can see, I didn't get that. I just had the glue in. Probably that might be nice if you're doing dry gloves. But at least for me, it wasn't really something that I needed. Working our way down, let's talk about some of the other options that you can get. On both the suits that I own, I got pockets on the left and right. These are the Halcyon pockets. These are really good. Santi makes a similar, maybe slightly larger pocket. In both cases, they have a zipper on the flap, which you can store smaller things in. There's bungee loops inside there that you could clip off, say, tools, or in my case, I keep a truck key in one of my pockets. Inside, there are further bungee loops for keeping gears stowed. The Halcyon pockets, like I said, are just a bit smaller. They have nice drain holes in the bottom. And then in each case, there's a smaller, thinner pocket on the inside. And for cave divers and I think exploration divers out in the ocean, we carry wet notes, which is a waterproof notebook that fits snugly in here. This is used for either documenting things or communicating or writing down survey notes and things like that. So, and for this suit, the DUI, I got this is a crotch pad. This helps with durability. Generally with me cave diving a lot, I'm doing a lot of scootering, and that can add additional wear and tear to the crotch of the suit. The Santi has something similar. They just put a very durable fabric in the crotch there. So, one of the things I forgot to mention that I think is fairly important, and we'll talk a bit about this further down, further in the video, but one of the big differences that Santi and DUI have is that the valves, the inflator and the dump and the inflator valve, these you can remove yourself. There's a gasket here, and when you unscrew it, you can take the whole thing out and clean it. DUI, in the past, used to glue theirs in. So if you ever needed to replace it, it was kind of a pain and you'd have to send it back. I think they may have changed that. I haven't pulled this out to see, but I'm looking at it and it appears that maybe you can take it apart yourself. So that's an important feature. Again, depending on your comfortability, servicing your own gear is either really important to you or it's not, and maybe you just want to send it back to the shop. So just something to keep in mind, and whatever works best for you. So continuing with features and options, on all my suits I have a P valve. I use the Halcyon P valve. This is a balance. It's basically got a one-way valve in it, and it allows you to go to the bathroom in the water on long dives. There's a hose there. I think you can use your imagination of how that gets attached. But that's a really important feature that if you're doing a lot of long dives, I highly recommend. And I have it placed on my left leg. I don't really think there's any reason why I couldn't have it on my right. At least I can't think of anything. So, but I have seen it on both. One of the other options that is important, I like to have knee protection. This is on the Santi Elite Plus. This is a Kevlar pad. It's actually got some padding in it. So yeah, there are some cases, some dive sites where I actually have to get on my knees to climb out, and this does help. Helps some of the wear. On the DUI, it's not Kevlar, but it's a thick duck fabric, extra thickness. I think having knee pads is a good thing and very important. It's probably one of the areas that you'll wear the most. Okay, and one of the last features that we'll talk about here as far as options go is the boots. So there are, I guess, two main options, three really. This boot is new from DUI, and it's very similar, almost identical to the boots that Santi has had on their suits for quite a while. It's made of neoprene, so it's like a wetsuit boot if you have wetsuit boots already, with a hard sole. And these boots are glued onto the Drysuit, well, sewn and then glued, and of course they're waterproof. I like these. These fit me. I have a narrow foot. The other option for you is DUI has, I think it's a turbo sole. That's what they call it. That's their brand name. And I found them to be a bit wider, and I wear a XL Jet fin, and these fit my foot into the XL Jets much better than the larger turbo soles. Your other option is it's like a sock that they glue on, and then you can wear what amounts to an overboot. I've seen people wear like Chuck Taylors, or even DUI makes something called a rock boot. The rock boot is, think of it like a hiking boot for your dry suit. The option of that is probably really good for you if you're out on the West Coast and you're doing a lot of shore diving, you're climbing over rocks. The downside to something like that versus with these is the rock boots, you're going to lose mobility and flexibility in the ankles, so your precision fitting may not be as good, but a lot of it's personal preference. I like these. These work fine for me here in Florida in the caves. I'm not climbing over sharp rocks. I would say that even with these, it would be questionable whether you'd feel the rocks through the sole. But keep in mind that when you're getting a dry suit, it's very important to go to a shop, as I said earlier, that knows them and knows how to fit you. There's nothing worse than buying a dry suit and assuming that the boots that you are getting are going to fit, and they don't. It's pretty expensive to cut the boots off and put new ones on. You can do it, but ideally if you buy a brand new dry suit, you don't have to do that right away. So I recommend going to the shop, and they should have boots that you can try on, these without the dry suit. So you try them on with your undergarments, with your socks that you plan on wearing when you're diving in a dry suit, and find the one that fits best for you. Some people find these to be very narrow. Works for me because I have a narrow foot. So, a couple other differences that you're probably noticing if you're watching these videos are the zipper placement. One goes in one direction and the other one goes in the other. Does this matter? It can actually. If the zipper, like in this case, comes from this shoulder and your dump valve is on this side, it can reduce some of the mobility because it makes this part of the dry suit somewhat bulky. When I got this suit fitted for me, I actually added a little bit of room in the shoulders. This is intended to be a long dive suit. I made it a bit bigger. I had them make it a bit bigger. So the mobility thing isn't an issue, but be careful, because if you get it cut close or you're wearing a lot of bulky undergarments, being able to get your zipper down may be a challenge. On the contrast, this suit has the zipper going from the opposite shoulder, so you don't have as much fabric up here to make it stiff. One of the disadvantages of this is that now that puts the inflator on this side. So may not be an issue for you, but I wear, in some cases, I wear a heater pack, a battery. And that's what this cable's for. In fact, I have a heater plug on this dry suit as well. It's probably tough to see with the light, but the intent of these is to be able to plug in a heated vest while you're wearing the dry suit. You wear the vest underneath, of course, and then on a long dive, you can flip a switch and get some heat. Being on this side, I generally wear the heater pack on my right beside my canister, and I've found that sometimes that can make this, if I stretch too much, it'll unplug, so it's a bit of a pain. I have to be careful. I need to probably really just get a longer cord for my heater pack, but other than that, so just, you know, some things to keep in mind, that all of these placements will drive some of the feel and the fit of the suit. So let's talk about the fit. Just how does the dry suit feel when you're wearing it? A really good custom cut dry suit is going to be very comfortable. I think when you get to the point where you're thinking about buying a dry suit, or maybe you're upgrading or whatever, it's worth the time to spend getting something that fits you very well. It's probably nothing worse than being uncomfortable. The DUI here is cut a bit big, as I said, so when I'm wearing heavier undergarments, it works very well. I like to have room in the shoulders, so I asked them to add some room, as I said earlier. The other thing is, there is some stylish aspects to it. I think you'll see that both of them are cut a little bit differently. The Santi, as far as the fit goes, it's probably a little bit tighter for me in the chest, but again, that's all personal and how I got the cut. I think the Santi is probably a little bit more form fitting, I guess. The DUI tends to be maybe like they don't trim out the fabric, I guess, in the waist area. So either way, I like them both. They work good. And with the fit, for me, I think it's important that, again, if you get measured and you can, but having the right inseam length in the legs is nice. The way I dive is basically I'm in trim and my legs are bent up, and so when I'm on land and I'm not in the water, the dry suit in the legs seems a bit bulky, but once I'm in the trim position, it takes up some of that extra fabric. Keep that in mind, because sometimes if you, like, let's say you're going to buy a used dry suit and you go to try it on, definitely one, try it on with undergarments, but definitely two, keep in mind that just because you're standing there in the dry suit and the fit looks good on land, lay on the floor, get in the trim position, get in the position of diving, and make sure that it feels good, because that you sometimes do need extra fabric to take up some of that. You know, you don't want it to be so tight in the chest that you can't reach your valves, or you can't manipulate the things that you're supposed to, to manage underwater. So keep that in mind. And yeah, so fit is very important. But I think if you go to a reputable place and you try a couple dry suits on, you should be okay with the fit. One of the things I've seen a lot of people ask and read about on forums, and when I was purchasing my first suit, I was really worried about flexibility and durability and things like that. I think flexibility for me has a lot more to do with getting the suit that fits properly, more so than the fabric. Both of these suits are geared towards being heavy duty, though they do claim them to be flexible. The fabric may be slightly flexible, but again, it's a matter of getting the right fit. And that includes the fit with the undergarments, as I mentioned earlier. Getting undergarments that are proper dry suit undergarments is very important. But I do feel that the fabric is somewhat flexible. It's comfortable, at least with these two. So like I said, this isn't specifically a brand or a review or anything geared towards a particular brand, but I believe the higher end dry suits are gonna meet your needs from a flexibility standpoint. So let's talk a bit about durability. Now that you've gotten a bunch of information, probably purchased your dry suit, or maybe what to expect. So let's talk about durability and aftercare. No dry suit, no matter how much you spend, is going to be leak proof, ever. If you dive and you use it, you're going to get leaks. Things are going to wear out. You're going to get wear and tear. There are features that I look for to help reduce that, but let's be honest, the sport that we're doing, diving, can be very hard on gear, especially cave diving. So what to expect with a tri-laminate dry suit, durability wise? With this fabric, if you are doing open water diving and you're not crawling around either the wrecks or caves, it'll probably last you, depending on how much you dive, of course, a number of years. The advantage of a dry suit over a wetsuit is that you're gonna get a lot more life out of a dry suit if you take care of it properly. And I mean, store it in climate controlled, like bring your dry suit inside, don't store it in a hot car, don't leave it in the sun, don't do all those things, and it'll last you for years, 10 years maybe. But in that time, you're going to have to replace things. The seals, for one, those are going to go out maybe once every 2 years, depending on dive frequency. If you get the latex, they are pretty durable, as I mentioned earlier, but you still, you'll notice that they get gummy and they'll get cracks, and yeah, you're going to have to replace them. That's just the reality. The zippers, for sure. I've been through boots, have had to replace those, and neck seals, of course. All these things are general. You should probably take the Drysuit into a shop. If you're not comfortable checking it yourself, take it into the shop and see. Let someone look at it to make sure that it's okay to dive. I do get holes in every Drysuit that I've owned. I've had holes. It depends where, depends what I'm doing. I do tend to get them in like the chest area, the knees. I've gotten some in the boots. I've gotten some up in the shoulders. These are areas where my harness is rubbing, or a stage bottle, things that are abrasive, that are wearing against the suit. Like I said, my diving is maybe different than yours, but just to manage expectations there, yeah, for sure. Your Drysuit, it's a wonderful piece of equipment, but you have to take care of it, and it will get some wear and tear. So what happens if your Drysuit has a hole in it? What happens if you need to replace a neck seal and or wrist seals? This is a really important aspect of ownership. And for example, when you're choosing a brand to go with, this suit being an American-made suit, you may have the ability to mail it off to California to DUI. They can fix it, they can take care of it. The turnaround time is fairly quick. Cost-wise, I haven't done that before, so I can't tell you, but I'm sure it's not all that expensive compared to the Drysuit. But it's an important thing to note whenever you're choosing a brand. This suit is made in Poland, so there's a couple disadvantages to having a suit made overseas. One, when you first buy it, if it doesn't fit and they need to recut it, they have to send it all the way back, and it's going to take a while. With a DUI, you're actually going to get that returned a lot quicker. That being said, a lot of the minor repairs that you can do on either suit, you can probably get done at a local shop. So I've been lucky, at least I own 3 Santis. I've not had any one of those have to go back to Poland, but it is a risk, right? Not saying one is better than the other, but at least for me, I was willing to take this risk. I really like them both, and the fit for me works. So just to understand that, there might be that off chance that you have to send it off. Let's say you have a repair that needs to be done. How long is something like that going to take? Wrist and neck seals, depending on where you go, that could take a day. Get some turnaround time really quick. If you have to mail it off, maybe a couple weeks. The zippers, I think I mentioned earlier, but the zippers will take a couple weeks for sure. That's a surgery. They have to actually cut the old zipper out. Boots, again, that's going to take a while. Any other alterations to the suit, it's going to take a while. So like I said, the main things though are the neck seal and the wrist seals. That's what you're going to be replacing the most, and they don't take very long at all. So cost wise, I don't know, 150 bucks maybe. I can't remember, but it's not crazy expensive for at least the seals. The zipper, I think you're going to look at $300, $400. Boots, probably about the same. But the lifespan of the suit, it will, you probably put 3 or 4 seals on it, maybe a zipper, maybe a pair of boots over the entire lifespan. And eventually the fabric will break down. You'll start to get pinholes in the fabric, but it will last you much longer than a wetsuit, and the investment, I think, is worth it. So thanks everybody. I hope you enjoyed the information that I've presented here for you, and that you can go out and make a Drysuit purchase with confidence, and that you understand some of maybe the questions that you might have had before that. And yeah, so have a great day.